Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Champions of Change for Tech Inclusion. We're really excited to have you here. It's been a long time planning, and thank you, those of you who bared the circus today when we had the fire drill. So thanks for persevering, staying with us, and we have a really great program for you today. So I just want to take a moment and say thank you again, and I'd like to welcome Ms. Valerie Jarrett. She is the Senior Advisor to President Obama. She is also the Chair of the Council on Women and Girls. She is a huge champion for tech inclusion and has been a real advocate for this since the beginning, so I'd like to invite Valerie to the stage. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Katie, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon. We are so excited to have you all here. Look at this room. It's the highlight of my day, seeing you all. I love Champions of Change, and I want to just say how pleased I am to be with you for a moment. I want to acknowledge our special guest, Baratunde Thurston, who I had a chance to meet. Where'd you go? Where are you? There you are. Shout out for you for moderating our panel. We appreciate that. And of course, congratulations to the champions who I also had a chance to just meet. You are literally rock stars, and we are so appreciative of what you're doing to transform technology. All of us care so deeply about making sure that our young people have the opportunity to dream big. And as I always say, young people start out with that twinkle in their eye and a dream in their hearts, and it's our job to make sure that they can reach that full potential. And that's what this afternoon is really all about. Whatever their background, our children, all of our children, deserve the chance to reach for the sky and pursue whatever they put their minds to and live up to their fullest potential, including working on STEM. I saw this potential firsthand back in April when we had a science fair here at the White House, and oh, let me tell you, what an experience that was. Did I feel not that bright by the end of seeing what all of these young people had invented? I visited 30 exhibits that day, and I spoke with students about their projects, and they were so excited to be in the White House, and I was so excited to see what they had invented. And it was everything from some young women who showed me a rocket that had launched a raw egg. I won't tell you what happened to the egg after they launched it, but it did actually work successfully. They had designed the rocket. It actually did not crack. There was also another young woman who helped to make a device that strengthens the eye muscle and improves vision. And so far, her testing demonstrated real evidentiary proof. And it wasn't even a complicated contraption, if you will. It was really very simple, but it worked. And she was about 13, I think. So let me tell you, a lot has changed since I was back in school. We weren't doing any of the kind of really cool stuff that those young people were doing. I also had an opportunity to meet, of course, parents and teachers, and we continue to lift them up as well, because those are the ones who are nurturing these young people. And I hope that as parents and teachers and mentors and role models, we will continue to do that. This is really all about our young people, and I'm just delighted to see so many young people here today. But it's also, importantly, about the future of our country. The president has said that getting boys and girls engaged and excited about STEM is so incredibly important to the future of our nation. It is a big part of what makes the United States globally competitive, and it always begins with the young people. Just yesterday, President Obama gave a speech in Tennessee at the Amazon facility, and he was talking all about how we can create jobs for the 21st century. How can we make sure that our young people grow up with the skills that they need to have that ability to have that globally competitive edge? And those jobs are going to be eventually filled by our young people, so let's make sure that they have the skills that they need for them. And as we know, the students of today are going to be the inventors. They're always the entrepreneurs. They're the business leaders of tomorrow. We'll all be working for them one day. So let's figure out what we can do to nurture them and lift them up. We know that students with STEM skills are going to be the driving force towards that competitive edge that we all want. They're going to be at the top of creativity and innovation and entrepreneurship. We also know that as a nation, our diversity is one of our greatest strengths. I spoke at a naturalization ceremony yesterday, and there were over 92 countries represented. Over 700 people. And I'll tell you, watching those folks of all ages taking that pledge and oath to our country and standing and giving the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag just reminds you that this is really what our country is all about. It's about diversity, it's about innovation, it's about strength, and character and commitment and selflessness and dedication to our community. And as we also know that as a nation, we have to do whatever we can to nurture that. It doesn't just happen by accident. It takes real effort, and that's what we're celebrating here today with our incredible Champions of Change. So I speak a fair amount about engagement, but as I said, this Champions Initiative is one that we really take a great deal of pride in because we are recognizing just ordinary Americans who are doing extraordinary things. And when you go back home, we hope that you'll tell everybody that the White House and President Obama recognized your efforts. And it's amazing how the Champions for Change initiative gets more regional press than I think anything else that we do. Because when you go back home, you are celebrities because you came here and we were able to recognize everything that you've done. And so that's why the Tech Inclusion Champions of Change is what today is really all about. We have an amazing group of folks who are sparking imagination and captivating young minds all across our country, from teaching computer science to high school students to encouraging young women and urban teens, teaching them how to code. And I have no idea what that code means. One day someone's going to teach me how to code. I'll be looking forward to that, to writing children's books, to providing low-income students with programming classes. Our champions are doing phenomenal work for the youth of tomorrow. So I hope that you know that the President is so very proud of all of you and that he is right there alongside of you with your efforts to make sure that we are bringing STEM to underrepresented communities. So, for example, he launched a private-public initiative to move students to the top of the pack on math and science. And this effort is known as Educate to Innovate. And it's a campaign that has generated over $750 million towards STEM education efforts. And I spoke with Ursula Burns, who's the CEO of Xerox yesterday, who said she really wants to redouble our efforts to making sure that we are getting young people, particularly young girls, interested in STEM. And she tells an amazing story about growing up poor and having absolutely no idea what it meant to be an engineer. She had an aptitude for science and math, and she landed an internship at Xerox, and now she's a CEO. And so we know that if we open up those doors and those gateways to people when they're very young, we can actually capture their imagination and provide them with the opportunity to reach their dreams. Another woman, Ellen Kullman, who is now CEO of DuPont, told me once that her dream as a child was to be an astronaut. She wanted to go in space, and that's what really drove her into engineering. And so she said, well, I never made it to space, but I am one of the few women CEOs in the country, which isn't bad either. So even if you fall a little short of that dream, you might end up doing all right. So we have committed to creating STEM education and mentorship opportunities for our young women. So another example would be our science-oriented agencies such as the EPA and the Department of Energy have STEM programs that are specifically targeting young women and girls. And we're training teachers to help prepare students across the country for the rigor of those STEM courses. But we can't do it alone, which is where all of you come in. So those of you who we are honoring today, those of you who are fans and supporters, and other folks who are committed to the innovation that stands firmly behind STEM, I just thank you on behalf of the President and our administration. You're terrific partners, and we are so proud of you all. So thank you very much. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much to Valerie Jarrett. I now would like to introduce you to a man who needs no introduction, I think, but I'm honored to do so anyway as well. Baratunde Thurston is going to be your MC and your moderator for today's event. Baratunde is the CEO, co-founder, and hashtagger-in-chief of Cultivated Wit. He wrote the New York Times bestseller, How to Be Black, and served for 5 years as director of digital for the satirical news outlet The Onion. When he's not delivering keynote talks at gatherings such as South by Southwest, Le Web, PDF, he writes a monthly column for Fast Company and contributes to the MIT Media Lab as a director's fellow. He's co-founded the Black political blog Jack and Jill Politics. He's advised the White House on a variety of digital activities, and he has more than 10 years of experience in stand-up comedy, so I have no doubt he will not leave us all smiling, laughing, learning, and loving today's event. So with that, I'd like to introduce Baratunde up to the stage.
What's up, y'all? Put your hands together, just clap as much as you have in you. Good, good. We'll do better later. That's a good warm-up. I am pretty obviously honored to be here, and I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. I wanted to clarify something that Valerie Jarrett said. She talked about this rocket experiment with a raw egg that was launched, and she didn't reveal what happened at the end of that. The truly innovative thing is that that egg turned into a full-grown living chicken and just flew off into the sunset. It was very, very powerful. NASA's looking into it. It's kind of under wraps research right now. I probably will be taken away after this session is over for revealing state secrets. It is really good to be here. I grew up in this town, and I want to thank you, Katie, for having me here. So I actually care about this issue on a pretty significant and serious level. It's a part of my own family history. My great-grandfather was born right across the river in Virginia, born into slavery, and taught himself to read. And that's like a revolutionary act, just the power to consume information. I still don't understand how someone does that, but you want to learn so much that you kind of dive into it and go for it. And he ended up moving to D.C. in 1896, almost 100 years before I was born here. He had 2 daughters, and one of those daughters was my maternal grandmother, Lorraine Martin. She was the first black employee at the U.S. Supreme Court building. She worked in clerical services, and my sister and I have an older sister. We didn't know this until 2005. Tragically, after our own mother died, we started going through her stuff, not in a criminal way, just so that you go through effects when someone moves on, and we found these newspaper clippings of our grandmother with Jimmy Carter, and this newspaper article in the Afro-American celebrating the first Negro woman to work inside the Supreme Court building. And that's a weird family secret to keep, right? Like, are we on the same page on that? Because normally it's something embarrassing. It's like, oh, we don't talk about Louisiana because Grandma has a warrant, for running moonshine back in the day. But in this case, it's like, be quiet. She's a civil rights hero. Don't tell anybody. That's awkward, My mother came along and pretty much rebelled outside the walls of the very institutions my grandmother worked at. She was always in the street protesting something. The revolution wasn't televised, but it was photographed heavily in black and white with all kinds of head wraps and dashikis. And she brought my older sister and I up in the Columbia Heights neighborhood just north of here in the 80s under, very strange mayoral circumstances I think we're all familiar with. My mother never graduated from college. She took some classes at University of the District of Columbia. She took classes at Montgomery Community College. I attended some of those classes with her. She was a domestic worker. She cooked food. She delivered phone books to buy our house. And she saw the future. She somehow got a piece of it, and she started working in the office of the comptroller of the currency. She became a systems analyst and COBOL programmer with no degree, with no code academy, without these champions here. She was a champion in her own right, and so I'm very personally connected and honest to this because she made my life possible. She made my sister's life possible. My sister runs a yoga studio in Lansing, but she was 20 years a journalist, digital news director at the Lansing State Journal. I was digital director at The Onion. We had the same job, except I lied a lot more in my job. It was really quite an honor. So that is the context with which I'm here and honored to kind of facilitate the greatness of these champions. I'm also running the Rocky theme song on loop in the back of my head, so if I bust out at any time, that's acceptable. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to ask panel 1 to please come to the stage and take your seats, and we will get into it. I have some questions, and I just would love to know, right here, how are you? What's your name? Everybody say, what's up, Debbie? Thank you for being with us, Debbie. Can we get a round of applause as these guys take their seats? And I'm going to transition. Check, check. Cool. So very, very briefly, just so you, I don't know if you can read the name tags from that distance, we have Rebecca Garcia at the far end. She is the co-founder of Coder Dojo in New York City. We have Ruth Farmer. She's the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the National Center for Women and IT. We have Jeff Epps, Director of IT at the Richmond County Schools in Hamlet, North Carolina. And by the way, we're all wearing these rings. Jeff's students made these with a 3D printer. So thanks for the free jewelry.
If you look at my hand, my finger was too small.
So oh, no. I'm sure they can ship you something.
We're going to re-engineer it.
Yes. Carlos Bueno, who's an engineer at Facebook, but is here primarily because of the children's book he wrote called Lorem Ipsum, which teaches computer programming and critical thinking skills. So I hope Congress takes up that book and applies it. Come on now. And we have Kimberly Bryant, the founder and executive director of Black Girls Code. There's no super formal intro, but the first question I have, we can just go down the line. When did you realize that technology was this catalyst, that it had some special power, and how did that lead you to doing the work that you do? Why technology?
Why technology? So earlier I gave my story of how I got interested in technology, but really the quick 5-second story was we run free coding classes for youth in New York City, and this is going on across the globe with Coder Dojo. And we had a little girl, also named Rebecca, smaller than me, who was attending our courses for a couple of months, and she had never heard of computer science before. She had never had any experience with it, and she attended for a few months, learned HTML and CSS and some programming. Her parents came to us later that month, a couple months later, and said, she came to us and said, is this something I can do for a living? This 9-year-old girl, she later went on to develop her first Android application, and she's been a really big inspiration. To see the change in one child's life and to see that change ripple throughout the globe, I think is really important. Is that sparking the imagination and creativity that they can use coding and technology as an art.
What was your aha moment, Ruth?
Well, unlike most everyone else at this table, I am not a technical person.
What? Where are the guards?
I'm not an engineer, but I manufacture engineers.
Whoa, what? Hold up.
So I actually, for me, it was two things. One, in college, as an undergrad, I took Rhetoric of Women from Dr. Jean Ward at Lewis and Clark College, if you're watching. And that was the first time as a sophomore in college that I heard about all these women, like Sojourner Truth and Ida Wells. And I was like, how come I've never heard of these women? And now I'm 20 years old in college. This is ridiculous. So that hit me then. And then later, I took a job at the Girl Scouts, and I actually walked out of a big, high-paying job to work for half as much money at the Girl Scouts of Oregon. And Intel offered a grant, and it was to launch an engineering program for girls. And I just found that this missing piece of girls in technology and girls' voices in technology fit perfectly with my own personal feminist agenda. And it's the one place where we're not advancing, we're backsliding seriously. So that just struck for me, and it seems like the place I can have the biggest impact right now.
Okay, thanks. Jeff?
My aha moment came 30 years ago when I was 14. I keyed in my first computer program, which was a hangman program, and it didn't work. I realized that I didn't read the directions properly. I had to press enter after every line. So after I followed the directions, the program worked. And for me, it was a very powerful moment because I realized that computers were powerful, and it made me powerful. And I wasn't the most athletically inclined kid. I couldn't shoot a basketball. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a ball. I couldn't throw a football. I wasn't very fast. But I was, it made me realize that I was smart. So whenever I look at young people, I see myself. I see a coder. And it's my mission now that every student that I meet and every student that we reach out to, that we introduce them to coding, because they might find out that they're pretty smart as well.
Carlos?
So I learned slowly, so my aha moment took about 10 years, start to finish. I saw from the inside 3 industries get dissolved and transformed by technology. We used to repair electronics, and then they became too cheap to repair. I did illustration until desktop publishing came along and killed that. And then I did desktop publishing until this little thing called the internet came along and killed that. And
Well, so whatever you do, we should stop doing that.
just run away.
He is a harbinger, man.
It took me a long time to realize I couldn't just keep hopping sideways. I had to hop up a level because otherwise those things are just going to eat me.
Yeah.
And you had to keep going. And why kids? That took another 10 years. That's when I thought back and I realized that the first job I had, repairing electronics, I was 12 years old. I was working for my parents in their family business. And it's kind of remarkable that kids can do that if you don't tell them it's too hard, right? So we just need to tell not tell more kids that.
Kimberly?
Yes, so for me, I think what resonated with me this morning was hearing Valerie Jarrett talk about Ursula Burns and her journey to becoming the CEO of Xerox, and that's one of my personal heroes, but that was similar to my story. I graduated in an inner city high school, and I really had no clue what engineering was, or those people were not walking around in my neighborhood, but I had an aptitude for math and science, and I was kind of led down that path to becoming an engineer. So throughout my career of being in tech companies and consumer products companies in the engineering fashion, some 20 years after finding myself in the Bay Area and in the heart of Silicon Valley and working in the middle of lots of opportunity, but being able to look outside my back door from my biotech company and see Bayview Hunters Point and a neighborhood that's impoverished, it's a neighborhood that lacks, and a neighborhood with lots of black and brown kids that were like me 20 years ago. So it was clear to me as sort of a light bulb moment that we can't not lose another generation. We can't afford it as a community. We can't afford it as a nation to have a generation left behind without having access to technology and tools that really changed my life, and that's going to change everything we know and think we know today.
All right, thank you. Just for those of you on the live stream as well, whitehouse.gov/live, hello. The hashtag is WHChamps, and we will try to check the feed and see if you guys have questions for this panel and the next one. That goes for the people in the room, too. We have a question that was submitted in advance from Alexander Howard. He's from D.C., former tech writer at O'Reilly, and he posted this, and I think it could be addressed by anyone, so whoever just jumps in first can take the bulk of it. What's the biggest challenge you faced in building a career in technology? Who or what helped you overcome that challenge? And what's the most effective thing that others can do to help other folks overcome that challenge? So building an actual career in technology, what was the hardest part, and who helped or what helped you through it?
I want to say the hardest part for me was thinking logically in terms of writing code. If, then, when this. In high school, it was my computer programming instructor, Mr. Stewart. He allowed me to fail my way forward.
You had a high school CS instructor.
I did.
Where was this?
I did. This was at Terry Sanford High School, Bulldogs, North Carolina.
That's not very common.
It was a special class. There was 3 of us. And my guidance counselor recommended me for the class because by the time I became a senior, I knew pretty much everything that they could teach at our high school. But Mr. Stewart would challenge us every day. We wrote programs for the front office. And interestingly enough, our toughest assignment was a program that the people in the front office could take names and addresses of students, type a letter, and then have the computer address that letter to all the students.
Wait, what? That's crazy. What? You could send messages?
And we now know that to be a mail merge.
Yeah.
It's a mail merge system, and we wrote one in high school. And that was a pretty amazing feat when this company called Microsoft came out with it. And we were, a couple of high school buddies said to me, we did that first.
Did you sue?
Yeah, we tried, it didn't work out. But for me, that's what it was. He allowed us to fail our way forward. And what I learned from that is Mr. Stewart drew a line in the sand between mediocrity and greatness, made us step over to greatness, and dared us to go back.
One thing he said that, though I am not a technical person, is he recommended him. And I think that's one of the key things we need to work on is who's being pushed and who's being recommended. It costs you nothing to tell a kid they're good at something, to just write on their paper, great job, you're good at this, you should think about this as a career. It doesn't cost anything. It's really, really easy to do. And just making that choice to push kids or make that comment is really, really important.
I would say for myself, the hardest thing was surviving as a woman of color in electrical engineering, and even more smaller field of power engineering, like where I'm like on power poles and working in power plants.
So that's not just like all women all the time?
No.
No?
So that was extremely hard, but just navigating the whole process as a woman in a male-dominated industry was incredibly hard. And even, staying in it throughout for more than 20 years and being able to move up through the ranks. And I think for me, one of the main drivers for creating Black Girls Code and supporting other organizations like Girls Develop It or Girl Tech Girls or other organizations like NCWIT, NGCP that support getting women is making so that is no longer a reality. Because it's hard to be the only one. It takes a tremendous amount of grit to get through that and stay with it. So I would say support these organizations that support women in tech. That's what I would say.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, Rebecca.
so for me, one of my biggest challenges was taking the next step. And I think I've seen a lot of people, both youth and adults, who are afraid. They're afraid to take the next step with their code. They come out of school or they're interested in learning and they don't know what the next step is in technology education. And for me, I took that really big step. I knew that I wanted to work at a nonprofit and I wanted to do technology. And I decided at the time that I wanted to leave school to do it part-time and work full-time at a nonprofit. So I left to go work at Do Something, where I learned that you could combine, social change and technology together. And, now I see a lot of these kids struggling with the same thing. Is my code good enough? And, there's, life is version control, right? Life is version control. You're constantly
Money
becoming...
quote.
Oh, no, somebody's going to tweet that.
That's good. It's good.
No, but life is version control
I'm gonna
because
tweet
you're
it.
constantly trying to become the next better version of yourself. And how are you going to do that if you're not failing forward?
You talked about challenges within the code for some of these students. We got a question from tech_woman, which I think it gets to the difficult side of a lot of the work that many of you do. For communities with challenges including gang activities, youth acquiring weapons, drug dealing, prostitution even, how can youth improve their quality of life for themselves and their peers through the use of technology? Can they? Is it even an apt question?
Expose them as early as possible. With regard to gangs, you have to take away their customers, and they're hanging around our schoolyards. If we can entice our students and make it very appealing for them to enter these tech programs, and when I say appealing, we can't just say, do you want to be an engineer? Hey, do you think maybe you'd want to design a ring or a bracelet or something like that? Take them into a lab. Show them how it happens. Show them how you go from concept to digital to physical. That's going to take maybe half an hour. I guarantee you then you'll get them hooked. And once we can start getting them into these programs and off of the streets and where they're not targets for gang activity, you'll start to see an increase in engineers and software designers or even manufacturers, and less gang activity out there in our schools. Early exposure is the
Okay.
key.
I think there's, there's a tremendous growth right now in online programs and online opportunities. You can go to the code.org website and it'll direct you to all kinds of different ways that you can begin learning this. Not that code is everything in technology, just want to say that. It's a lot more things than just coding. But also that I find that simply telling kids what the monetary rewards are when you get out of college is pretty darn attractive.
Yeah.
So the recruiting for first-year interns at some of these companies is comparable to athletic recruiting, and they're paying upwards of $30 an hour for interns in Silicon Valley. So it's pretty attractive to a group of students in 8th, 9th, 10th grade when you say, okay, you want to make $30 an hour, this is the path you need to take.
I think one of the big things is also, finding role models and mentors, because that is what changed it for me, was finding other people who were like me, who were interested, and also other youth who were interested. So similar programs like the ones we run, serve to have those role models and mentors available, but also, so many people don't realize that they can be that. This is sort of like a call out to all of the big tech companies out there. It doesn't mean you have to be a teacher, but you could be an important part in somebody's life, and inspiring them to see that there are other job opportunities out there.
Carlos, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, there's kind of two things. One is that computer science itself is really young, and that means it's very messy. We actually don't know what we're doing, and we don't know what's easy, we don't know what's hard. So we need some way to force us to explain it in a more simple way. And that's just a natural thing, because it's a young field. The other one is that kids are a lot smarter than we generally give them credit for. And we need to push these ideas out in the mainstream. That means put it into fiction, put it into playground games, really make it a part of popular culture. So I tried to use one problem to solve another. Kids are really rough on the ego when you're trying to explain something, and it turns out you don't actually understand it.
So basically,
But that's
do your
good,
homework.
right? That's how you make yourself fail, so you actually do it better.
We got a particular question for you, Kimberly, from Sharif Jackson, who asks, what strategies have you developed at Black Girls Code to deal with potential pushback as you expand to different cities? And I think the more general version for all of you is, how do you scale this up? You're working in a particular school, you've got one book, you're in New York City with Coder Dojo, you're with NCIWT. So let's start with your specifics of regional expansion, but I want everybody to weigh in on how does this affect more?
So for Black Girls Code, I'm not sure about the question in terms of where the pushback is. We haven't had pushback from the community that we serve. Well, you probably wouldn't if that was the community that you serve. So I don't know really how to answer that. So there's more demand, I think, for programs like ours. We are the only program that really does focus on specifically girls of color, and we have probably 50, 60 cities on our waiting list for a BGC chapter. And so we've taken an approach to just expand by creating local, independent, tied to our corporate headquarters chapters in different cities with a core group of supporters, community organization partners, corporate partners, K through 12 partners, as well as university partners to kind of incubate our programs. That's what we're doing in Detroit with Wayne State. That's what we're doing in cities like the Bay Area and cities such as Atlanta, where we've worked with Georgia Tech and Spelman, et cetera. So really tapping into community resources and making it a community effort and a community movement. I think that is what has mostly fueled our growth as an organization.
And what about some of the rest of you? How do you move the big needle from your local position?
Well, so NCWIT is a national coalition of 450 organizations. It was specifically built to address the lack of women in IT. And by IT, we mean all forms of moving information and communication. And that is a full pipeline computing community, K to the grave. So it's actually the only place the entire pipeline is getting together really in earnest. And so it's become this incredible network to leverage. And when I joined NCWIT in 2008, they had this Aspirations in Computing Award, and it was being awarded once a year to 30 girls. And I was like, that's awesome, but we need 30,000 girls. So I franchised it, and I leveraged all these partners that share our vision, universities, K-12 organizations, corporations. So in New York City, Bloomberg hosts the Aspirations in Computing Award at their facility, and the girls have this amazing experience. Georgia Tech does it in Georgia and in Puerto Rico, because I think they want to go to Puerto Rico. and all over the country. So in 5 years, we've gone from 30 girls a year to over 1,000 girls a year. And so I think the key to getting to scale is to leverage the resources that are out there. Don't build another network. You wouldn't start a business without doing market research to see what's out there. Don't start a youth program or a nonprofit without doing the research to see who's out there that you can use and leverage, because there are organizations that have massive networks, big distribution channels. If you've got a product to sell, you're going to sell it at Target. You're not going to start a set of retail stores. So let's think about how we can leverage what's already out there and put the content you want into the network instead of creating a new network.
Coder Dojo is really lucky that we're global, and I'm very lucky to be a part of the New York City chapter. But I'm not part of the New York City chapter alone. And what's really great is that we get to harness this global network of sharing problems with each other. And, new chapters that want to start up reach out and say, like, well, do I need to, raise money? Do I need to find a space? And, for us, it's in-kind donations, it's space, it's leveraging what's already there, like you mentioned. Instead of trying to just, search for all this money and do all these things right away, we start small. And that small but simple has worked really well for Coder Dojo. Right now, there's currently about 200 chapters in 23 countries across the globe. And I've had the privilege of advising some of them and helping them start up in countries from Mexico, Spain, Ireland, all over. And I think harnessing that local community is really important.
I think there's one thing that might block scaling ideas, just the usual stuff of getting people to hear about your project or getting people to run it. We still think of programming as a profession and not a skill, or not a thing that you do in the service of some other profession. There's very few professional statisticians in the world, but there are millions of professionals who use statistics to win in whatever it is they're doing. And programming is that way. I don't think there should be 100 times as many professional programmers. There should be 100 times as many professionals who program. And that's, it's a kind of an inversion of the concept that we haven't really gotten to yet. And that can keep people from thinking, well, I don't want a job in Silicon Valley, or I don't want to do that all day. Well, you don't do that all day. You do that to win in whatever else you care about.
Yeah. In all of your work, what surprised you the most? It could be a positive, unexpected thing, could be a negative, unexpected thing, but you've entered this, you've got your own professional background, you had your own life lessons, you launched out in many cases to start a thing or to join a thing. What did you not foresee that seemed significant to you?
How quickly the students learn to swim. And what I mean by
I thought
swim,
we were talking about programming.
we're talking
Okay, so just throwing kids in the pool?
just throwing it into the pool. And when I talk about the pool, I'm talking about the technology pool. I'm talking about computer programming. I'm talking about 3D printing, 3D scanning, video game design. When you bring a group of students into a computer lab and you basically say, here, give this a try, kick the tires on it, tell me what you think. And then you come back 30 minutes later and you say, how'd you do that? Where'd that come from? How did you make that? Or a week later, they come back and they show you something extraordinary that they've created. Whereas basically we've thrown them into that pool and they've learned to tread water, and eventually they learn to swim.
The crux of our program is sort of the how we find the girls. So my idea is find the girls with potential and move them forward, is through an award and a recognition. And there's 6 of them in the room. Raise your hand if you're one of mine. Yay. And they're actually my best ambassadors. But the one thing that struck me the most was how incredibly impactful being recognized was on them. Mm-hmm. And we ask a survey at the end. It's 5 questions, or sort of leading open-ended questions. Because of this, I am more. Because of this, I am less. 76% of girls use the words, because of this award, I am less afraid, embarrassed, or ashamed of being in technology. And the fact that young people are somehow ashamed or afraid of being in the most lucrative field that exists right now, we've clearly got a messaging problem on the national level about what this means, and on the personal level in the schools, among the peers. And so that really struck me how much having someone outside you say, you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing, helps to keep them in.
I would just add real quickly, one thing that's been a pleasant surprise is the power of parents and the work that we're doing. We just kind of stumbled on parent engagement in our programs because we would have a class on a Saturday and parents would not leave. They would sit around and they would hover and we would lobby them and corral them, but they would not leave. So we got to do something productive with these parents if they're going to stay.
That's like the opposite situation.
Absolutely. They don't leave. And then the parents wanted to learn how to code, and then we started to teach them. And so they built video games. And, we had full parent tracks of how to engage your student and how to support your child once they leave Black Girls Code. And that's been one of the most positive and most impactful additions to our program is really tapping into that parental support and giving them the tools they need to support their child.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest, pleasant surprises has been, like what you were saying earlier, is seeing how the kids can take this and run with it and see it, change the perspective that it's just an analytical, mathematical sort of thing. We were really surprised. We took our curriculum, which was how to make, pick something that interests you, make a web page. It was hard for them to pick their own interests. But when we said, hey, we're going to make choose your own adventure stories, the kids went nuts with it. They were like, I'm going to make my, storyboard do this, do that, and they loved it. And seeing how passionate they could become about things like that was just, it blew my mind and made you realize that it is a creative sort of art.
Yeah. I wanted to, there's another question which addresses where you're delivering some of these students to on the other side. It's from Christina Lewis Halpern from New York, an advocate of a lot of these things. Can change happen simply if more minority youth and girls learn to code? Or do corporations, incubators, accelerators, university engineering, and business programs need to change as well? She suggests the answer is obviously yes. So if you think it's yes, what concrete steps do tech organizations take now to recruit more of the people you're manufacturing?
Well, yes, absolutely yes. And it's not just the universities that need to change, it's the corporations. The leak is biggest in the workforce. Women quit at twice the rate men do. So if we could just retain the women we already got into technology, we'd save 600,000 right there.
Do you know what is causing the fall off?
If we knew the answer to that, we would have solved it. But there's a lot of different factors that come into play: cultural, financial, the economy, lots of things going on. But we actually have spent the last 9 years doing original research and finding the research to not only fix the pedagogy in the classroom, fix it in the at the college level, create strategies, test things. We've got 250 universities that are out there testing things, and then they bring it back to the group and they share. And the same with our corporate members. Our corporate members are trying things and changing things, looking at employee evaluation processes. How do you write about a woman versus how do you write about a man on an employee evaluation?
So you're talking to America right now.
We're talking to America.
And what are a few, you have all this original research. Give me 1 to 3 things the people listening can do.
Okay, 1 to 3 things you can do. 1, understand what stereotype threat is and pay attention to it in not only the way you interact for yourself, but the way you interact with other people. Try to be blind in your assessment processes. They've shown if you take the name and the gender off of a resume or an audition, that more women and more minorities are chosen and succeed. So think about those processes. Are they truly fair? And I really would love to see more technology professionals collaborating with universities and collaborating with schools in ways that are appropriate. So you can't just walk out of Google and go teach a class, just the same as I can't walk into Google and be an engineer. So I think everybody has the perfect skill set for what they're doing, and if we can work together to collaborate, I think that's going to take us a long way.
Do you want to quickly explain stereotype threat?
So stereotype threat is holding yourself back because of you don't want to fulfill the stereotype about you. So not taking a math class because you've been told girls aren't good at math. And they've actually proven that they took a group of Stanford male engineers and said, we're going to have you take this math test, but they had a group of Asian male engineers over here, and they're like, we're just going to see if it's true that Asians are better at math. And because they said that, because they set up that stereotype, that actually caused those white male engineering graduate students who should have no problem with their math confidence to do poorer on the test. And so thinking about things like, are you asking someone their race before they are asked to do a task? And then are you not asking for an assignment because you don't want to prove that women really can't do this?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the crux of it, and we
Okay.
have a lot of resources on it if you're interested in reading more.
Anybody else want to jump in with?
Yeah, I have to add to this question. So I agree with Christina, and the answer is yes and yes. And I believe that, you know, being in technology, we work in an industry, be that biotech, nanotech, whatever tech has it, it's abundance there. There's so many resources. So it makes no sense that we're in a place such as the Bay Area, not to nab on the Bay Area, where
Talking to you, San
there
Francisco.
there are all these resources in our backyard, and we look outside in Bayview Hunters Point, and we have neighborhoods where the attrition rate for students of color is over 60, 70%. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. There are resources there. Tech companies have resources. They have people. They have equipment. They have access, like Google, to go in and lay fiber in neighborhoods that don't have it. So it's a simple question when you have companies that are big as a nation in terms of their valuation, that they don't put money back into organizations to feed the pipeline. If you want a pipeline, then you have to grow it. And I'm not talking about starting in high school or college. I'm talking about first grade. Feed these organizations. Support these organizations that are building the people that are going to run your companies in the future. Just do it. Just like Nike says, just do it. It's the right thing to do.
Jeff?
I'd like to, I say yes and yes as well. I'm going to share 2 real-world experiences with our program. I want to start with a young lady by the name of Alexis. Alexis is an African-American girl in our 3D Design Academy. When I met Alexis when she was a freshman at our early college, and when we introduced her to 3D design, I asked her, Alexis, what are you interested in? And she said, I really like interior design. So we introduced her to the concept of taking blueprints of houses, erecting 3D models, and then creating the furniture that goes into the rooms and decorating these rooms. Alexis became so good at this. She became the best 3D modeler I had. She ran circles around our boys. Sorry, guys. But we then approached a local realtor that builds custom homes as well and said, we have a young lady that'll take any blueprint you have, create a 3D model of the house, furnish it, and publish it to the internet so that all of your customers can visit your website and walk through that house as if it were already built. Alexis ended up taking, as a result, she ended up taking a computer science, computer programming course, Visual C, in high school. And I'm proud to say, and Alexis, if you're watching, Alexis is now going to the University of East Carolina University in North Carolina as a computer science major. So we're really excited about that.
You go, girl.
Last but not least, talking to the corporations now. So if you're in the room or if you're watching, make the investment in our schools. Public schools, all schools, our budgets are dwindling. We cannot afford to pay software assurance licenses and upgrade licenses for software. We're trying to buy books, okay? And I'm going to call out Geomagic, 3D Systems Geomagic. They are partnering with our program. They sent us copies of their software at no cost to us. We exposed our students to it. They're learning 3D scanning, 3D printing, and 3D design with their software. They're also, as a matter of fact, tomorrow I have to fly out of here tonight because first thing in the morning, they're sending an engineer out to work with our students to show them how to use the software better. Make the investment in our schools. It's intellectual property. We're not asking you to send cash. Cash is good, but if you can't send cash, send the software and maybe send some support out there to show our students how to use it. That investment has a huge return over and over.
Thank you, all, panel one. I'm going to ask you guys to take your name tags and exit the stage behind me. Panel two, you can bring your name tags and replace these humans with your humanness. Audience, if we could just clap while we swap bodies. Just big, yeah, it's like a talk show. This is great. This is great. We have runners and no water. That was tremendous. And Oh, that was your wife. Cool. Deborah. And everybody on the stream, hey, we're at the White House. We're all thinking it, right? We're at the White House, y'all. That's crazy. Excellent. All right, I'll do again a quick pass on identifying who's on stage, and we'll jump into our first question. Far into the stage, we have Seth Rachelson, a teacher at Lake Brantley High School, been named Teacher of the Year a lot of times. His programming students do very, very well. We have to his right, Cheryl Soignier, Associate Professor, Fort Valley State University, Department of Mathematics and Computer Science. To her right, we have Dina Pirot, Founder and Executive Director of iUrban Teen Program in Vancouver, Washington. To her right, we have Mr. Kevin Mitchell, the lead volunteer at Script Ed. And to his right, we have Teresa Freet, an organizer with Developers for Good. And to my left, just to switch up the directions, we have Catherine Finney, founder and managing director of Digital Undivided. So I will toss to the far end with a similar opening question. You've had a lot of time to think about it. Your tech aha moment, how that led in some ways to what you're doing now. And by the way, what are you doing now?
Well, my aha moment was getting invited to the White House. I look at that sign and I really can't believe I'm here. And I just like to, really thanks for inviting me and giving me a reason to wear my suit. I've worn it twice, and I'm just very happy to wear it right now.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
You look good in the suit.
Do I?
You should come to the White House more.
I tied it once. The lady at the store tied it, and I'm still wearing it.
He's teaching our future, guys. He's teaching the future.
With me, it's the most exciting class to teach in high school is AP Computer Science. And there's so many resources and it's changing so much that it's infectious, my excitement. And it just happened.
Yeah.
Like a virus.
All right. Cheryl?
So I've been in computer science for almost 30 years now. Have a background in computer science in terms of a bachelor's and a master's, and trying to complete a PhD in computer science, although I have a doctorate in education right now. I worked in corporate for almost 15 years and felt like I reached a glass ceiling, and I reinvented myself and became a K-12 high school math teacher. And I decided this is not it. So I transitioned into higher...
Do you want to expand on that? What exactly happened in high school?
And so I transitioned
The
to
answer's
higher
no.
education.
She does not want to expand on that. But we've all been in high school, so we can imagine.
And so I transitioned into higher ed, and I started to teach computer science at Fort Valley State University 5 years ago. And my advisor at Auburn University at that time, Warren Gilbert, he suggested that I start an ACM organization, and ACM stands for Association of Computing Machinery. And I did as he advised me. And from that, I started to get involved with NSF BPC grants through Warren Gilbert, such as ArtSeed, A4s, Art Stars, in an effort to increase the number of women and minorities in computing. And consequently, I had the opportunity at Fort Valley State University to meet 3 young students. One student by the name of Kelvin Bivens, who is from a rural town in South Georgia, Quitman, Georgia, which happens to be my hometown, and I didn't even know it. And he had never flown on an airplane before. And so my first conference that I took my students to was an arts conference at Microsoft in Redmond, Washington, at their main campus. And from there, I started to grow the student chapter FVSU ACM, and we started to do outreach with the local middle school and the high school. And I started teaching my students how to conduct research at the undergraduate level. And from there, they began to do summer internships, REUs at different institutions. And my last year, which was my 5th year, well, really the year before last, one of my students received the REU at Carnegie Mellon University.
What's an REU?
Research experiences for undergraduates, where they go to an institution, research one school, and do research with a professor there. And so when my student got the REU experience at Carnegie Mellon University, that was really my aha moment. Here we're at this HBCU, small HBCU, Fort Valley State University, in a rural community, and I had the opportunity to mentor this undergraduate student in computer science, and they go from a HBCU to Carnegie Mellon University. That was huge. In my world, that was huge.
Yeah.
And now that student is a PhD student in HCI, Human Computer Interaction, at Clemson University. And so from there, I've had several other students to work at NSA.
Oh, great.
Now, and I have students, okay, who are working, like I said, working on their PhDs, and I have students who are working for GE Leadership Program. So
Yeah.
those types of experiences have been my aha moment.
Thank you. Danielle.
Yeah, I was wondering when my turn was going to happen. You were talking. You were talking. That's okay. It was interesting. My aha moment came kind of by accident, but even though I say things don't happen by happenstance, because I'm not a techie. I'm like Ruth. I don't have a tech. Don't get on me.
I'm with you. I'm on your
Okay.
side, literally.
I don't have a technology background. I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm very innovative. I was a commissioner in the state of Washington on the Governor Gregoire's Commission on African American Affairs, and all of our ethnic commissions were looking at the achievement gap issue, especially in our black and brown youth. And so focusing on that and still trying to figure out what can we do, a friend of mine who was one of my mentors, or I say /sponsor, had started a Chief Information Officer Council in Portland and was going to start one in Seattle and wanted me to be a part of it. And I'm like, I don't know nothing about technology. And he said, I know, but you're innovative. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do this. And so as soon as I walked into the room, I looked at a whole group of white males. And I said, and people know me, Vancouver, Washington, you know me. I said immediately, what's wrong with this picture? Where's the diversity? Am I the only person of color in this room? And they say, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to change that. So now I do all of the, when we have our summits, I do all of the diversity, women in IT, youth of color in IT, those kind of things. So when I saw that disparity, and then there's the achievement gap issue, I thought to myself, how can I marry the two? So I created the iUrban Teen Tech Summits that we hold them on different university campuses, and we reach out to, and I think I'm probably the only one here that focuses on, we have an intentional focus on African American and Latino males, ages 13 to 18, and the ones a little bit more marginalized, maybe at the risk of dropping out of high school. And we try to create a technology spark on the university campus so they can feel what that feels like to be on that campus and hopefully see themselves there one day. And so we've had companies like Nike, I'm over in that Pacific Northwest area, Nike, Intel, Walmart, Leica, they've been participating and trying to show these different workshops, digital animation, cybersecurity, gaming. Now we're changing our model into different industries, STEM-created careers in healthcare, transportation, energy, those kind of things. Then we have a year-long process, we call it tech tours. We take them actually onto the employer's campus to see how technology is used in their industries. So we started that, and now we're in our year 3, and we've had over 700 youth that have participated. We have an intentional outreach to boys. However, we had almost equal parity of girls and youth with disabilities that participate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now to the white male to your right.
Oh, yeah, you.
Hello, Kevin. What was your aha moment?
Thank you. So,
You're doing great, man. You're doing
thank
great.
you, thank you.
We've got you surrounded.
So, Mine was probably I could thank my father. He's a engineer at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. When I was about 10 years old, he took me to like a career day, bring your child to work day, and showed me all of the cool technology they had. It was anything from laser systems to radar to satellite dishes to space technology to missile defense, all these kind of things. But the thing I was like most fascinated by was he sat me in front of his workstation while he was on a phone call, and he knew I was a pretty nerdy kid who was really into Star Trek, and loaded up a Star Trek fan site on the internet. And this was in 92, 93, so this is well before it really gained.
There were no pictures.
Yeah, and I had no idea something like this existed, and being able to share a passion with people and have access to that level of information just really sort of inspired me in my career. And then I was lucky enough in high school to have some really good mentors in technology. I want to call out Reg Hahn and Todd Marks, who are two really good teachers that I had. And I saw the potential for how much you could change students' lives if you got people that were in tech, that were passionate about these kind of things involved, and you could get these kids excited about things. And that's so that's why I ended up joining up with ScriptEd, and we bring volunteers to high schools in New York City to teach programming classes and also to provide students with internships at local companies. And we've seen a huge amount of interest from the local development community, and it's been really inspiring to see that. And I think having real-world mentors, that have real-world experience is really what can change the lives of a lot of these students.
Thanks. Teresa?
So I come to this from more of an education and a nonprofit background, and all of the coding that I know, I taught myself to do. So I can't say bad things about, the various pathways that you take to get here. But I think the aha moment for me was just everything that I've done in the past 4 or 5 years was either being radically changed by technology or could be vastly improved by technology. It's just touching every area of life, whether it's social, business, every industry. Tech is changing the way that it works and often improves how it could work. Yeah. And so I think I was kind of pushed into tech and into working with Developers for Good and its kind of parent organization, Code Montage, by the founder of both of those, Vanessa Hurst, who's a friend of mine and has been for over 13 years. And
what does that mean? She pushed you into tech?
Physically.
Physically
Yes. Physically.
into like a wall of code?
Yes, physically.
Yeah.
She pushed me into the pool. Luckily, I met her swimming. So when we were younger, so it was fine.
If you're just tuning in, that makes no sense. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That's your fault.
She's really passionate about using software and using programming as a form of helping people, and as that software is about humanity. And that really was the draw for me, that using computers to help people is such a great way to amplify impact.
Right. Catherine, your aha moment.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I want to wake some of you guys up, I see. We're here at the White House talking about tech inclusion. You got to get excited. Yay! Come on, wake up. Woo, jazz hands.
We just did jazz hands at the White House.
We did jazz hands at the White House. That's pretty awesome, off my bucket list. My aha moment, it feels like I've been having aha moments for the past 30-something years. I don't want to date myself. My father was a high school dropout brewery worker who happened to find himself at a local program, a local organization called OIC. And for those of you out there who know OIC, it's a sort of an opportunity center, had locations around the country. This was the early 80s. It was well funded by the Reagan administration. And it was there to sort of help displaced factory workers. And my father found himself in this data entry class that just happened to be taught by some person from IBM who found himself in the middle of the hood of Milwaukee, and this was really the hood. This wasn't the cute outskirts, it was the hood. Who took an hour out of his time to teach people data entry. And my father, who was forward thinking, even though he was a brewery worker, even though he didn't graduate from high school, he found a connection to this. And the guy who was teaching the course was like, hey, maybe you should come and stop by, IBM. We're looking for interns. Now, mind you, he had 2 kids, was working part-time unpacking boxes from a truck. He had a wife. That's important to know as a wife. He had a wife. And yet he took an unpaid internship at IBM. That unpaid internship led to a data entry job at Digital Equipment. Again, I'm kind of dating my family a little bit. Which then led to a position as a senior software engineer at Microsoft. And then when he passed, he was a senior engineer at EMC. And that path had a huge impact on me because I saw just that opportunity, someone taking an hour out of their time to go deep in the hood and just teach a class. He had no idea what he was sparking. And my dad's success then led to success of not only my immediate family, but other people as well. So fast forward 20 years, I had started a blog, was one of the first female style bloggers, if you can tell by my sparkly shirt here, and found a way to turn that into a business. And I thought, well, you know what? I want to develop products. So I entered one of the first incubators. And in this incubator, I faced really stiff challenges that had nothing to do with my intellect, my idea, nothing to do with my background. It was all based upon my gender and my color. And I thought, wow, if someone like me, Ivy League educated with this pedigree and who has all these skills and connections is facing this challenge, what happens to everyone else? And through the help of an organization that I work with and I advise called BlogHer, and I don't know if you guys know BlogHer, but represents 45 million women, I was really encouraged to start sort of a conference. It's like, I know there's more people out there like me. There has to be more. And so we founded Digital Undivided and Focus 100, which is our signature conference, happening October 4th through October 6th this year. I hope to see you all there, including you, Baratunde.
Wow, yes, okay.
And so we started this. We didn't know what we were going to get. We didn't know if anyone was going to fund us. We had no idea. And what happened was, with this conference, we sparked this whole community. We went to every organization. We shook every tree, finding any Black woman who founded, thought about founded, was thinking about finding a tech company. We actually have many of our Focus Fellows here right now. I see some of you over here, one's back there, who is at Focus 100. And as a result, we created our own network. We created our own ecosystem. And what was interesting about this is, as in the process of creating our own ecosystem, we got other people to come in. One of our major founders is Andreessen Horowitz. I don't know if you guys know Andreessen Horowitz, but Andreessen Horowitz funds almost everybody who's making money or who sold themselves. So from Facebook to Instagram,
Major capital company.
major VC firm who's a major supporter of us, also Kapor. But we also built partnerships with a lot of businesses. So Amex and Microsoft and Dell and all of these other companies, Ogilvy, have come on and really worked with us in what we're doing. And so, like I said, I've been having aha moments. I'm having one right now. It's super cool with the White House thing in the background. And I'm so excited to be here. And hopefully you will all approach me afterwards so that we can talk about how we can get you involved
In an
in
orderly
digital,
fashion.
in an orderly fashion with Digital Undivided.
Thank you, Catherine. I wanted to give this panel a chance. If there's anything you heard in the first session that you felt like, I've got to jump in here. America's not going to be complete without my answer to that question.
I forgot what they were.
Okay, that's it. You weren't paying attention. Thanks. The teacher, again. He's just trying to keep his tie on. I get it, man. It's hard out there. It's hard out there. Look, we have a question that came in from Denise Barreto from Lake in the Hills, Illinois. And she says, I love all the work you're doing, especially Dina Pirro. Congratulations. She's also the founder of an international women's network I'm part of. My question is this: what can we do in our communities to expand or extend the work you've started in yours?
Oh, wow, great question. I got to pay her later. Thank you, Denise, if you're watching. I think that, well, for me, with our programs, we are expanding to various cities, and universities. But when we move into those communities, we try to create a community cluster, basically community partners. I don't want to be the do-all to end-all, meaning if there's a program in that community that does tutoring, I don't need to create a tutoring program. I'll partner with that local community organization or school, and share and network their information with our families and students. In the same where we're at right now, we have partnerships with local organizations to help spread and create this, what I call a collective impact. So if anyone in different cities want to have our program that focuses, again, on Latino and African American males in their cities, just contact me. It's easy to do. We create a local planning team in those cities that help make it happen. So.
Anybody else want to jump in on this? All right. We just actually had a question come in off of the internet. How can we create that technology spark? You talked about the spark, that maybe even unintentional or certainly unforeseeable of this IBM employee. How do we create that tech spark for more students, including at-risk youth? This is from the Health Policy Group on Twitter.
Well, I think it's pretty easy. The IBM guy took an hour of his time and he came into the hood. That's what he did. And I think if we have more people taking that time, just an hour, we're not talking about, dedicating your life to it like we have, but just taking an hour out of your time, going into and working with some of these programs, you'll be amazed about the spark that you can generate. I mean, we see it even with our program at Digital Undivided, that people taking an hour, we have folks, David Tish, who's like a big-time VC, just spending an hour mentoring one of our companies. And then we see the impact of that company being able to get funding later on. It's just really about taking time. I mean, I think that's even more important than money, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
I would like to add to that. Today here in the room, we have Girls Inc., and they're sitting in the back. And they're from Columbus, Georgia, where I'm from. And I mentored these girls in technology. And they thought it was so important to come here. And some of them are even interested in computing and want to major in computer science as a result of the efforts that my students and I at Fort Valley State University conduct, with these students in computing, from teaching them how to write code to teaching them how to develop websites as well as robotics program.
I don't know how you could stop the interest. Everybody has a computer. She's on a smartphone. I personally have about 64 gigs in my pocket right now, and I don't understand how you can not want to see what's underneath the hood and create something. Computer science is the only class where you could go with zero entry and create.
What's your technique? You're teaching in high school.
I teach high school.
Your students win all these awards.
Yeah.
What have you found through your own trial and error and amongst other teachers and with students? What's working most, and maybe that you didn't even see when you first started?
I teach everyone. I don't care who you are. I'll teach you. I don't care.
I mean, you don't have to say it like a threat. I'll teach you some computer science. I don't care who you are. Like, I'm right here at school. Like.
And with that diversity,
Yeah.
you just get things from all different angles, and you win.
Yeah.
And you win a lot.
Does the pervasiveness of tech, you talk about the pocket of the 64 gigs, the fact that we've got all these social digital platforms, that it's
You
the
don't see
way
my
we
pocket
find
to
our
prove it,
friends?
okay.
Is that a natural gateway into this for your own students? Are you able to convert their interest in Facebook and Snapchat into,
Oh, yeah.
building things?
Absolutely. I mean, they say girls aren't into computer science, but they're always on the computer. You punish kids now by telling them you can't play with your computer. The interest is all there.
Yeah.
And to create, they love it.
I think it's about leveraging that. I mean, it's easy to say, like, of course, everybody wants to be on a computer, but you have to be able to say, this computer, this is what it's doing, this is the outcome of it. Of course, every student who has a smartphone, or everyone who doesn't, wants a smartphone, and they want to do all of the incredible things on their phones, and they want to be able to use whatever app everyone else is using. But being able to connect for them that those apps, like, this is how those apps came into existence. This is all the cool stuff going on in layers underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the people who are making this stuff happen. That's how you get them excited about it. Not just, here's a phone, it's cool, look at all the stuff it can do. Get them excited about the process of doing that, and also start getting people more interested in what computers are solving, what the problems they're solving. Everybody cares about something. Everybody has an issue they care about, and everybody wants to do something with that. So if you can kind of get people starting to think about what they could do with programming skills, not necessarily, I want to be a programmer, I want to be a person who solves this problem, and I'm going to use computers to do it, I think that would be hugely impactful.
Yeah. You're sitting in the same seat of the last person who had a very similar sentiment. There's something about that chair.
I was like cheering in
The
my
Carlos
mind when
Buenos
Carlos
Memorial
was saying
chair.
it.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things you can do is get role models in the communities that have a passion for these things, because that becomes just infectious. I mean, we've seen it with our program where we have people come in and they're just really into this technology. You know, they do it for a living and they want to share this. So there's a lot of interest there. And the kids, like when they see that, oh, wow, this person's like really into it and they seem like a cool person. They're not, you know, some stereotype of a computer programmer. You know, it really inspires them, and then they feed off of that passion, and then they can do just
By
amazing
stereotype
things.
of a computer program, you mean like a really cool...
Yes, absolutely.
I also think that we have to be.
Let's just, we have a moment to just accept
It's a
that.
moment, yes.
Yeah. Thank you for
I'll
these
center
gifts,
myself.
man. You're amazing.
I think also
welcome.
we have to not. I think we have to be careful about putting our own limitations on our kids. If you ask a kid, can you program, you know, an app? Many will say, I don't think so. But if you ask them, can you jailbreak my iPhone? Most of them will be able to do it. And so, you know, we're keeping it 100.
Because they believe in data liberation.
Data liberation, exactly. So we have to make sure that what we're talking about and how we're engaging our kids is sort of where they're at. Most of them are mobile. And one of the things that we notice, what we do at Digital Undivided, is that a lot of the programs are focused so much on laptop and desktop-based programming, which is still where a lot of the programming happens. But the kids are mobile. They're on tablets. They're not on desktops. They're not, for the most part, on laptops either. So I think the challenge for us as adults who are in this space is making sure that we're engaging them where they're at.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the same experience where we had students that we asked them, you know, what are your favorite websites? And they're like, well, can I list the favorite apps on my phone?
Yeah.
So that's where, you know, that's where the technology is going, and that's where people are using it. So.
I want to say, too, that besides only just sparking the interest in the youth, sparking that interest in their parents as well, because we have a very heavy parent involvement piece. And so we work with them as well at creating that spark, you know, to keep that, you know, that spark going.
What are some of the most significant constraints, difficulties, challenges in the work that you're doing? You talk about solving problems. What of your own problems do you need solved?
A big challenge for me working at a small HBCU is funding and having access to capital to be able to do the things that I really, really want to do. So a lot of the times when I do things with my students in terms of outreach or in reach, I look externally for funding. So that's my biggest challenge.
Yes,
I don't
huh?
have any roadblocks. You can't stop me.
Again, you're talking in these threatening terms, man. Like, I just feel like there's this ominous tone to
You
you.
can only just hope to contain me.
It's Magneto over here.
I'll teach everyone in this room.
And then he makes it dirty. But seriously.
No, seriously, there is no cost. If you have a computer, there's so many
But
resources
let me
from National Science
let me slow down.
Foundation.
Let's not think just about money, right? Maybe the constraint isn't money. Maybe it's access. Maybe it's physical space. Maybe it's imagination. Maybe it's a
Okay.
particular supervisor.
When you
or-
teach 300 students, physical space is limited. I think that's a good problem to have. So
All right.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, the same as Cheryl, one of the challenges, and I'm pretty much like Seth, where I can't be stopped. I just do it anyway, with or without funding.
Exactly.
But however, and I got to give props to my community, Vancouver, Washington, because we have like little or no funding for this program. But our community comes together to make a lot of this stuff happen. We also have a large network of chief information officers that pull together and the parents to make it happen. But we have them anyway, and they're amazing. But we can do even more amazing things with funding, and I know that that's going to be coming.
For us, I think the challenge is that we're always coming up against this whole idea of patterns. I don't know how many of you know about that term, but it's a term that's thrown out sort of in the Silicon Valley VC angel world, which is, funders tend to fund people who have been successful before. And the people who have been successful before have been mostly, 26-year-old white guys. And that's because that's who they funded before. So it's this cycle. And we find ourselves coming up against that and directly challenging that in everything that we do. And we find that the way we sort of get over that barrier is with numbers. I'm a research epidemiologist by training, so I love biostats and I love stats. I'm that weird person.
Give it up for biostats.
Right, so I'm always like numbers. And what we found is that if we could come and say, look, 40 of our companies who came through Focus 100 last year, of our 40 companies, 20% received angel or venture funding. That is, 2,000 times more than the 1% that's supposed to receive funding in the general population. That number pops. And so what we found is the way to address these challenges is to come with numbers. You can't argue with numbers. That's the beauty of coming from this sort of tech, science, STEM background, is the numbers don't lie. So someone like Seth, he has a success. His students have won awards. You cannot deny that number. And that's what we found to be really effective in sort of directly challenging some of those challenges.
We had a particular question. This is from Christopher West in New York, and I think it may be best for both Danielle and Teresa, but I could be wrong. I'd like to see any of the honorees address how tech is and will be used to help perpetuate the greatly needed changes to our food system as a whole. And because you're doing Developer for Good and you're in Vancouver where food is extra delicious, I thought maybe this could apply to you. Who do you see as being leaders in this movement? What support pillars do you think need to be? Everything all right?
Voodoo Donuts.
We're talking about Voodoo Donuts. I'm sorry.
I should never have mentioned food.
They marry people there.
Okay.
Well, they
So Teresa,
Yes. This is actually
can look it up.
something that I am
Comes with
incredibly
free
passionate
donuts.
about.
yeah.
Both Voodoo Donuts, which are delicious, but perhaps not good for you. Maybe. But I do a lot of work with different organizations that are trying to improve the food system or trying to improve food access in education and school education around food. And I think on the ground level, technology, in the same way that it is in any other field, just the ability to reach more people, the ability to manage your data better, the ability to use whatever data you're collecting and use it in a way that's helping you figure out what kind of strategy you should have. All of that is really helpful, but at the same time, there's incredible things going on. Our agricultural system is really broken, and I was reading recently, I think in an area in Macedonia, their farmers are now getting SMS messages that tell them when certain types of pesticides or when certain types of bugs are coming, so they maybe don't have to use blanket pesticides. They can prepare on a smaller scale. So I think that we're at this interesting point in both food and tech and in every industry where people are coming up with incredible methods for solving the problems that we have. Text messaging is a very cheap but interestingly effective way to solve different problems and to disperse information and just the problems that because people care about, so many people care about different aspects of the food industry, and the more that they understand technology and the more that they understand how they can use it to solve the problems that they care about, that's what's going to change both the food industry or any other industry really, that we're coming up with all of these problems that we're facing that are kind of looming at us as we move forward.
Cool. We have a question from the room earlier I didn't get to with the last panel, but what role should men, and especially male leaders of tech companies, play in expanding STEM education and including women and underrepresented minorities? Men or women?
Most of the time, a man. I
Yeah.
speak to that. So I think.
Don't mess it up for us, all right?
Yeah, I'll do my best. one thing they can do is encourage your employees to get involved in the community. Have volunteer opportunities and give them that ability. I know of some organizations that it was actually just a meeting we did trying to get 20 hours a week, or 20 hours a year from their employees to go and do volunteer stuff and get involved in the community and give back. And I think that's a big thing that can be done, just to expose people and to get your employees to be involved.
Yeah.
I want to comment on that too, because I really do a heavy lift on trying to find, especially African American and Latino males, professionals, to come and be mentors and volunteers at our events, because it's very important to me that our young males see these men. In fact, when we have Intel usually comes out, their engineers, their African American Employee Network, usually comes out and does little mini tech fairs. And when the guys come in the room and they're looking preppy, they're looking sharp, they got the iPad things going on, I automatically look at my men and the little boys in the room, and I see them looking at them, almost fearful in a way, But then after a while, they start warming up and getting closer to them, and wanting to be like them. So when I see that happening, I'm like, this is the perfect outreach I'd like to have.
Yeah. Seth?
I know he's going to say something, that's why.
Surprise me.
I've actually been trained by NC WIT over 4 or 5 years on how to be more accommodating to females in computer science. And while I was a good teacher, they taught me tricks and how I was unintentionally reinforcing stereotypes. So that's Ruthie Farmer with NC WIT and the Cahoons.
So here's, again, since we have...
It was a conscious effort to change, though.
Since we have such attention focus right now, especially for people not in the room, can you go a little deeper and give us some examples of things that you were doing unintentionally, or things that you added to your techniques to be better at your job?
I actually did a lot of things wrong. I'll tell you somebody else's what they did wrong. They thought it was the greatest. They thought it was the greatest thing to have like a 6-foot statue of like Mario Brothers made out of discs and stuff. And I'm like, he's just telling me how great it was, and I just said, well, take it down. So in my room, I have art, I have plants, I have fish. I want a girl to come in my room and identify with what's going on. The thing that I did was the school was the Knights, and they said paint a shield of what your club is about.
Yeah.
And I painted the Iron Sheik with Java tattoos on its arm, and it was really, really funny, but I'm not really sure how many girls are going to look up and identify with the Iron Sheik. So, yeah, I've done a lot of things wrong.
Yeah.
That was the other guy, though.
Anybody else want to weigh in on?
Why is everyone looking at me?
Well, you're towards the bottom.
The glasses just amazing.
They're mesmerizing.
We had a very interesting question about the sort of historical context of tech and science. This is from Tech Woman. Sometimes science and tech are used in ways that are harmful to women and minorities, such as historical accounts of the Tuskegee experiment and the more recent reports of incarcerated women being sterilized while they're undergoing incarceration. What kinds of messages do you have for minorities and women as they enter STEM to prepare them for witnessing or being recruited to projects in which they don't agree? And even more broadly, how do you escape some of the negative legacy that may be applied to certain communities around this topic?
One of the things that we do is we have a saying in our company. We keep it 100. I don't know how many of you understand what that means, but that
Why don't you explain what it means?
Keeping it 100 means, it just means keeping it, telling the truth, keeping it, as clear and fact-based as possible. Is that a good?
That's great.
Great explanation of it. And so what we say to people when we interact with women, no matter where they're at, is like, you don't have a choice anymore. To be in STEM, to be engaged in technology is no longer an option. You have to. Even if you wanted to be a worker at McDonald's, you must have some computer skills. McDonald's uses heavily computers in taking orders and things like that. You have to be engaged. It is not a choice. And once we get past that discussion of whether or not is there a choice, whether or not you can still be afraid of technology, we run into a lot of people who are actually afraid of tech. For various reasons, both historical, cultural, social, economical. And we have a real frank discussion about what that means when you're afraid of tech. That means that you're going to make less money. That means that you're not going to be engaged in news and data and things that are coming through. And then after that discussion, then we have a discussion about how you are engaged in technology. You know, a lot of our folks use Twitter. A lot are engaged in apps. A lot are texting. I'm like, that's technology, what you're doing. Like right there, that you're engaged. And once we get sort of past that barrier, then we notice people start to become more open, start to be more engaged, start to be more curious about these things that are powering the programs, things that are powering what they are doing on a daily basis.
I've actually seen, kind of what you're saying, where this computing technology is invading every industry. It doesn't matter what you want to do, you're going to be exposed to this. So something we've told a lot of our students is, even if they come into it and they're like, I don't know if I really want to be a programmer or a full-time technologist, like learning this can just be a huge boon to your career. I mean, I have friends.
What ages do you work with?
We work with high school students,
Okay.
so anywhere from freshmen to juniors. I mean, the co-founder of Scripted, Moria, gives an example of, she was doing some work at her job where she was doing a lot of stuff with Excel spreadsheets and learned how to automate this process that used to take her hours and hours to do.
Yeah.
Figured out how to automate it and saved herself a bunch of time. So, even if, you had someone that's not wanting to focus as technology as their sole part of their career, learning this is going to help your career, no matter what you choose to do. So.
Yeah, computer science can be used for good. If ethically you don't believe in something and you're my student, I would expect you to get out of it. Computer science, like girls are into dolphins and saving dolphins, you could use computer science to save a dolphin. You could use computer science to do any career you want. So ethically, get out. Yeah, Tuskegee, that's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, we agree. That came out weird. That was my moment. We have a very specific
You're welcome.
question. Thanks, Seth. We're just going to do this together forever.
We could just all get on.
Lisa Phillips from Seattle studies social welfare at the University of Washington. And this goes to a later stage in this process, but I think it's an important question for her specifically, but also as a general point. I'm thinking of a career in technology after education and work in a much different field. What's your advice? And so much of what we're talking about, we've heard hints of parents, mostly youth focused, mostly getting people early, but not everybody made that choice. Not everybody
If
was
you
in
tell
your
her,
class.
I'll teach her.
Dear Lisa, stay away from Seth Rachel's. No, find him in Florida and learn. But yeah, so someone who's looking for that change later, they agree. They're seeing this. We're selling them. Now what?
It's so interesting in like the work we do. We have a lot of folks who were engineers who are now becoming entrepreneurs and taking that part. We have people who weren't engineers but who had great ideas in terms of what they wanted to do in sort of technology and who are doing sort of interesting things with that. My advice to her would be find your interest first. That has nothing to do with technology. Like what excites you? What gets you up in the morning and you're like, yes, I can't wait to do this. Like whatever the topic may be. Find that topic and then find a way to make it tech enabled. Maybe to build a company around it. Or look at companies that are in that field and who are tech companies. And that's your way in. So if your passion is education, there is a lot of edutech companies out there. In fact, edutech is one of the hottest fields in technology right now. If your passion is healthcare, you love to help people, you have a background in healthcare, go into health tech. Technology is not this big monolithic sort of scary cloud that no one can get into, and there are many different segments, and find a segment that you are passionate about and then find the tech companies or come up with the ideas to help you connect that to technology.
I would say also, I think we've talked a lot about using technology, but not necessarily that being your job. If that is what you want your job to be, I think that we need to be careful about not just getting everyone into technology and teaching everyone how to code, but how do we bridge the gap between teaching everybody how to write JavaScript or teaching everybody how to write HTML and CSS and making them hireable? And so I think that...
Keep going. What do you mean? Keep going.
I think, so the company that I work for, Code Montage, is kind of looking at that gap at getting people a portfolio of work? How do we take the knowledge that people, or how do we take all of this passion and all of this interest and turn it into something that somebody at a company wants to hire you to do work for them? Because it's very hard to gauge how many Codecademy badges means like you're a qualified software engineer. That's not they're very far apart.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward, we have to be really careful in not just pushing underrepresented minorities into tech, but making sure that they have the support network to become experts, because it's going to be damaging if we have all these beginners and then suddenly we've got all of women and underrepresented minorities in tech, but suddenly they're the people who are like just maybe kind of getting it, but not experts and not owning their field. So,
Danielle?
But we would think that those underrepresented minorities and girls who are interested in tech are there because they want to be there, not necessarily because somebody has, made them, be our computer scientists or to just study computing. We want those girls and underrepresented minorities who are genuinely interested because they'll be more productive in the field.
I just wanted to say to the person that wrote in, if she's looking at transitioning from what she's currently doing into technology, to do what Catherine said, to find out what your passion is, and then also what industry is that, and then look for people within that industry. Look on LinkedIn, find out who's in that industry that you can contact and have informational interviews with. And people are always so willing to help, especially if you're looking into getting into that field. So try to create some informational interview questions, meet with those people, start networking. And it is so easy to make that transition. You're in Seattle, I'm in that part of the world.
Uh-oh.
That's Silicon Forest. It's a hotbed.
Wait, Silicon Forest?
Silicon
Did we have
Forest.
there's another one?
Yes,
We got the
I know.
valley, the
Silicon
alley, the prairie.
Yep. That's what we are, Pacific Northwest.
Yeah,
Silicon
yeah.
Forest. We have all those tech companies there. So it'd be an easy transition for her. Tell her, look me up, mosaicblueprint.com.
All right.
I did a little plug there.
I'll write it back after we're done here.
I would add on to that and
Yeah,
say
Kevin.
you've already taken the first step, the fact that you're interested and you're into it.
Right.
So that's like the biggest thing you can do. And the two things I would say is don't be afraid to try and fail. Allow yourself, challenge yourself, and you may not get, if you're trying to write some program, you may not get it right the first time, but you're going to learn a lot. You might go down a lot of avenues that are dead ends, but you're going to learn so much from doing that. And two is to take advantage of the resources that are out there. I mean, we're very lucky to live at a time where there's so much information out available on the internet. And it's something we tell our students all the time. If you don't know how to do something, you know who does? Google does. So just learn to use the resources that are there and take full advantage of them, because it's just a huge wealth of information that's out there to help you with this.
I would love you guys to help to paint a picture a little bit. Go beyond what you're doing right now. Go beyond any limitations. I know you have none, but some do. And think out 20 to 50 years.
I might not be alive then.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
But just project out a little bit what is different about the world that you're operating in, about the world that we're operating in, because of the types of work you're doing. I'm not saying be arrogant enough to say you're going to change the whole planet, but if this movement is successful, you're a champion of change, you're represented here by these folks, and what is different 20 or more years out? Give us a flavor of that world. Yeah.
Well, I think in about 4 years, we should have about 10,000 computer science teachers in 10,000 schools. That's what we're hoping for. And right now, the access isn't there, and it will be.
I also think, well, one, we are going to change the world. I know we're not supposed to be arrogant.
No,
but,
you can be confident.
You can be confident, right? But I think if we look 20 to 50 years from now and we look at sort of the demographical changes that are happening, I think one of the things that's going to happen is being a developer is going to be like being a brewery worker. It's going to be the new sort of blue collar. And I also think that skills are going to triumph pedigree. It's not going to be so important where you went to school. It's not going to be as important that you went to Stanford or MIT or Harvard or Yale or what have you. But it's going to be more important what skills you actually have. Can you do the work? Can you code? Whether you are 13 or 35 or 55, like how well of a coder are you? And I think those are the changes that we're going to start to see.
I've actually already started to see that. I mean, I have colleagues that went to school for English degrees and then just found a passion for developing. Some of the best developers I've worked with, some of the other developers I've worked with don't have anything other than a high school education, but they use the resources that were available to them, and now they have jobs, making really good money. I think it's really hard to predict where we're going to be in 50 years because the technology moves so fast, and you're seeing these exponential returns, on things, and that's what makes it so exciting. So anyone that wants to get involved in this, it's sort of like the new Wild West. It's the frontier, and it's just hard to predict what's going to happen.
I would say that for me, that there wouldn't be a program like mine in existence because we wouldn't need it. That it would be. I know. Look, I'm talking myself out of a business. But no, really, for me, there wouldn't have to be these kind of programs. Society would be so inclusive and it would be so equitable that we wouldn't need these kind of programs.
Anybody else?
I'm just hoping in the next 10 to 50 years the Mets will win the World Series. And the Jets might win something. Because I haven't been alive for a Super Bowl victory.
Yeah.
Because one of my goals is to increase the number of girls and minorities in computing, I would like to see in the next 5 to 10 years more girls and minorities in computing.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Yeah, I'll close up quickly, I guess.
Speak for everyone.
I think I completely agree that, in the next 50 years, we won't need to champion tech inclusion because the term tech inclusion will be kind of outdated, and everybody will know how, it won't be a question of teaching people to code, it'll be a question of how is everybody using their individual coding and their individual tech skills that they know, because we do teach everyone how to do it, and because everybody already has these skills. And so we're not solving that problem, we're solving all the other problems using those skills.
That was perfect. Can you please give it up for panel 2, please? Seth Rachelson. Oh, what? Sorry. Sure.
I gotta just do a shout out to my friend Blake, who has not been taking my picture. Get your iPhone out and take a picture.
Is there a situation right now in the White House?
Yeah.
I feel like I am within my powers to say, could you all handle that after?
Sorry.
Seriously, thank you all so much for joining us. You can feel free to leave the stage now, and I'm going to introduce our closer. We have closing remarks in 30 seconds as I move from here to over there. You can clap them off the stage. It'll be more natural. People at home, it makes it look much better for the people at home if you're throwing stuff on the stage and really excited. So I want to thank the panelists. My role here is about done in maybe 15 to 48 seconds. So thank all of you for being here. Thanks those of you who tuned in. We're going to bring this home with someone who has probably the best job title that I could imagine, maybe the most aspirational job title for this theme of this room, which is Chief Technology Officer of the United States of America. That doesn't mean he'll fix your email. That means he's thinking about big things, big problems. And I had the pleasure of meeting him at a conference in Los Angeles. A lot of the people I've known who have transitioned from the private sector into government have often found some frustration, shall we say, at the pace or lack of pace of change. And I asked him, expecting him to pile on that same gripe, what's the most, have you found it very difficult to get things done in your position? You're in the executive branch, you got to deal with Congress and all kinds of stuff. And he said, no, I've never gotten more done in my career. I've never had more fun in my career to have the support of this White House and be able to do the things that we're doing. We've had hackathons at the White House. It's a real pleasure. So he actually restored my faith a bit in this whole democratic process, at least for 5 minutes while we spoke. And he will probably infect you with that same sense of possibility and the practical application of some of these ideas. So thank you all for having me. Please give it up for Todd Park, CTO of America. Come on down. What's up, man? You too.
Hello. How has today been? Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Baratunde, for that very kind introduction, for being such a fabulous MC. And congratulations once again to all of our champions and to everyone here in the room who has contributed to the awesomeness that's spreading across the country. in terms of connecting more and more kids, more and more folks to tech skills and opportunity. The president has said, in fact, there's nothing more important he can imagine to the future of America than connecting every kid to STEM skills, tech skills, and opportunity. We know that every kid from every background, from every walk of life, should be able to see themselves in whatever career, whatever field they want to be in. And that's exactly why we're all here today. The president, as the father of 2 daughters, wants to ensure that the same doors of opportunity are open to everybody, all students, regardless of gender, economic background, race. And he views this goal of broadening participation in STEM fields as fundamental to the nation's future prosperity and well-being. He understands that our ability to actually meet the demands for a growing workforce in science and tech fields depends upon success in this endeavor. He knows that our ability to invent the industries and jobs of the future depends on the success of this endeavor. The future of America depends on this endeavor. And all of you in the room, the champions and so many others, have contributed so much already to that critical initiative. The diversity of America is a huge asset for us as we compete on a diverse global stage. We need more Americans across all kinds of backgrounds, all walks of life, to actually connect to tech skills and opportunity and actually participate in the tech economy and help drive the future of the country. So we're personally incredibly passionate about that. Folks like the president and Valerie Jarrett and so many of us here in the White House, we've launched a White House Tech Inclusion effort to help catalyze and mobilize efforts to advance tech inclusion, connecting everyone to tech skills and opportunity. And the whole kind of fundamental ethos of this effort is that it's actually not something that government can do by itself or really anyone can do by themselves, right? It's an all-hands-on-deck effort that's required. The president frequently talks about the fact that the greatest challenge, the greatest opportunities we have as a country are ones where we have to take them on by banding together as sisters and brothers across the public sector, the private sector, the academic sector, the nonprofit sector, to actually do together what we actually cannot do separately. And tech inclusion, connecting everyone to tech skills and opportunity, is exactly one of those all-hands-on-deck challenges, opportunities, and efforts. There is a whole bunch of action going on in this space. You heard about a lot of it today in terms of the exciting, groundbreaking, historic work of our champions for change. There are additional initiatives I just want to touch briefly upon that you may have heard about. One example is I had the great pleasure with others here at the White House of hosting 5 past winners and current finalists for the Google Science Fair. Let me tell you what, these 5 young women, ages 13 through 16, were astonishing. Astonishing. They've done more in their first 13 to 16 years than I've done in my entire life. One, the elder stateswoman of the crew, was 16, has already invented a neural network-powered test for breast cancer that has like a 99% plus accuracy rate, which is just astonishing, and she's just getting started. Just imagine if we had millions of young women like this, right? It would be a different country, right? It'll be a different country when we actually get that to happen. Another example is just this spring, the president announced Connect Ed, which is, who's here heard about Connect Ed? Okay, fantastic. For the rest of you, this is very exciting news for you, right? So what's happening is that there's an initiative the president launched that will, within 5 years, connect 99% of American students K through 12 to high-speed broadband, minimum 100 megabits per second, and a target speed of a gigabit, right? Along with state-of-the-art wireless within each of the schools. It will also actually invest in training up teachers in online teaching and learning skills, and also is challenging the private sector to develop tablets, to develop content, to develop software that can really turbocharge learning, personalize it, and catapult us into a whole new era of educational achievement. Super, super exciting. Another example is US 2020, an initiative that was actually born out of a workshop held at the White House last year. And this has a really mind-bogglingly awesome goal, which is by 2020 to deploy 1 million new STEM mentors in American schools. I think all of us can remember a moment where someone loved us enough and cared about us enough to actually help point us to something that got us engaged in what we're actually now doing. And there's a whole bunch of evidence that injecting more mentoring into schools will create more moments of inspiration that will actually catapult a whole new generation of kids into science and tech careers. So the way this is working is it's a nonprofit. And what's happening is that companies are joining US 2020, tech companies, and saying, I commit as a CEO of this company to have 20% of my tech workforce spend 20 hours a year by 2020 mentoring in high schools and middle schools across the country, with a particular focus on schools that have been hard hit and kids that really, really need the outreach the most. So these are just a few examples, and this tapestry of initiatives, like the ones I just talked about, like the ones you've heard about today, comprise to me an emerging ecosystem of awesomeness, an ecosystem of effort to connect everyone to tech skills and opportunity, and it's just incredibly exciting to see how it's going and growing. So I hope today has been super inspiring for you. I hope you've learned a few things. I hope you met new people. I hope you plotted new initiatives to launch. I can't thank you enough, the champions and other folks in the audience like Ryan Seashore, or folks actually watching online like Mitch Kapoor and Frida Klein-Kapoor. I can't thank you enough for everything that you have already done. And I thank you even more for everything that you are about to do. Because while we're off to a great start, right, let's make the future happen along the lines of what our panel actually articulated, right? Let's actually make tech inclusion a basically redundant phrase because we will have actually built an inclusive tech ecosystem that not only creates equal opportunity for everybody, but that creates a much brighter, more prosperous future for the United States of America. So thank you so much for everything you're doing. May the force be with you as you do it. God bless you, and God bless America. Rock on.